Hi, this is Cora Stack here. I just wanted to offer my sympathies to the Burke family, and as I say, I have no conflict of interest with the Burkes whatsoever. So I think they have a very strong case for discrimination, and I'm not right wing and I'm not left wing. So I think what's been done to them is absolutely, for Mr. Enoch Burke in particular. I think there's a lot more than going on behind the scenes than I'm sort of. I'm suggesting that he has been seriously wronged, Mr. Burke, because he's so talented. So I've seen that happen. So I know exactly how this is done to people. How people's talent or their weak spots, if you like, are used against them. If you would call it weak, absolutely not. And he had an impeccable career up to this point. So it all adds up. And I couldn't do this until his wages or his money was removed. So this is it's very independent, and I have no conflict of interest whatsoever with the work. So this is purely straight down the line. So certainly he has a huge case for discrimination, and I hope it will be solved by mediation, and that he doesn't spend another night in jail. And I think An Taoiseach should immediately take control of the situation. So the same as he did with the four Kerry hunger strikers, immediately take control of the situation and sort it out, and give Mr. Burke the what he's due in compensation. So designed to protect institutions. Now there's a huge interest in my work on whistleblowing. So here's another angle for all the legal eagles watching this. So it's kind of ironic really to have a mathematician inform in the legal profession, but sure. They inform us on a lot of things too. So designed to protect institution, how Ireland's whistleblowing system was diluted. Of course, you see, I wrote the first paper, so I was the one that started this unfortunate situation in some ways. So I suppose I have an interest in this definitely because I was fascinated. It was a fascinating act to study, and then to see what happened in the implementation, and then to see what happened after. It's I suppose it's another thing that needs to be sorted out, perhaps by mediation or arbitration. But anyway, let's go here. Ireland's protective disclosure system was created to protect workers who report wrongdoing. But over the last decade, something very different has happened. This is not a system that is failing by accident. This is a system operating exactly as it was designed, to protect institutions, not truth tellers. The shift away from protection. In 2014, Ireland promised whistleblowers safety, fairness and independent handling. But today, workers who raise concerns face a very different reality. Across policing, healthcare, universities, local authorities and the public sector, one pattern repeats. The whistleblower becomes the problem, not the wrongdoing. See that switch? So I'm calling that switch burden reversal. The core structure failure. Burden reversal is the heart of the problem. Instead of investigating the issue, institutions investigate the individual. So this is the gaslighting, the twist, the switching. Cutaways, paperwork, HR meetings, closed door, stress isolation. The workers' motives, behaviour, tone, personality, even their emotional distress all become ammunition used against them. The disclosure is framed as a grievance. The concern becomes an interpersonal issue. The truth teller becomes a target to isolate and to gaslight. This is not accidental. It's the predictable outcome of letting institutions address disclosures made against themselves. How the legislation was diluted. The 2000 amendment made everything a lot worse. Internal handling mandatory. Independent investigations optional. Conflicting outsourcing allowed. No trauma-informed practice. No sanctions for retaliation. Longer timelines. Zero enforcement. So you're left, it says you don't have to respond for so many months. That's part of the penalisation. So presented as EU compliance with EU rules, the amendment actually strengthened institutional control and weakened worker protections. Institutional shielding, a systemic pattern. Internal handling means institutions set the narrative. Delay becomes a strategy. So silence, silence, silence. So if you make a protective disclosure, expect months of silence. And delay becomes a strategy. So their silence becomes a strategy, shielding the institution. Documents go missing, timelines stretch into months or years. See, all of this gaslighting. Narratives are manipulated to minimise risk and protect institutions. And when external investigations are brought in, they already have financial ties with the organisation. And if you ask them to declare any other conflicts of interest, well, what can you expect? Delays and silence. No answer. They've disappeared. Where are they gone? There's plenty of money where they are anyway, that's for sure. Loads of money. This is not independence. This is institutional shielding. Cronyism. Do we ever hear that in Ireland? Conflicts and collusion. Do we ever hear of cronyism? Especially when there's huge monies. Ireland's public governance operates through tight networks. The same firms, the same consultants. God, they're brilliant, aren't they, those consultants? The same lawyers, brilliant, appear again and again. The same faces, just circling. When the investigators, there's only so many of these masterful lawyers and big investigators. None of the rest of us are at the halfway place. We never figure out their game, their strategy, you know. I mean, how could I be figuring out all this strategy here? I mean, I'm not supposed to know any of this. None of us are. So that's why I'm, telling it to the public. When the investigations depend on the institution for future contracts, true independence is impossible. Well, that's conflict of interest. I mean, if you're outsourcing your protective disclosures to someone that you already have a lot of contracts with, are they going to side with the whistleblower? No chance. The capacity gap. We cannot investigate ourselves. Wrongdoing today is complex. Procurement, finance, governance, regulatory breaches, abuse of authority. Yet institutions assign these cases to HR staff, junior administrators or consultants who lack the skills required. And they're going to say, they're going to gaslight straight away because they haven't got the complexity. I mean, they're not forensic investigators, and a lot of these forensic investigators are often in, they're conflicted because they're in big firms, they're in consultancy firms. And, I would imagine, that there would be conflicts of interest. And, it's a good idea to ask them, if this happens, ask them is there a conflict of interest, and if there's a delay, that's the answer. This isn't just incompetence. It becomes, institutions. So this is what's happening in a lot of cases. You're getting these HR staff, and they're not like you need to be a CBI like for some of these, the criminal bureau investigation. That wouldn't be good enough to investigate some of these protective disclosures. And junior staff, junior administrators, or consultants who lack the skill set required, or else if they're very senior, they're conflicted because there's a pile of money going into the other side of the business, allegedly. I mean, this is what is I would have a lot of concern about. Obviously I can't speak. I can just speak from some of the research I've been doing. This isn't just incompetence; it becomes a structural defence mechanism. And then that all this kind of gaslighting causes the trauma and the re-traumatization. The greatest harm rarely comes from wrongdoing itself, but from the institutional response. This is a very big issue here. The way the institutions gaslight and shield, and the act now is actually allowing them to do this. It's embedded in the act. So the gaslighting is embedded in the act. Silence, delay, disbelief, character attacks, smear campaigns, all that sort of thing. These mirror the dynamics of coercive control. Whistleblowers are re-traumatised by the very processes meant to protect them. Now, we heard excellent accounts of the coercive control and the traumatisation of so many whistleblowers in the HSC, in Tusla and all of those things. And the stories are horrific. But if you're dealing with this kind of an act, this is the inevitable consequence. It's coercive control on these people, as it's understood. I mean, it's the worst form of criminality, and yet it's embedded in the act, like as if do it to these people. In the gaslighting with all these delays. I mean, who designed this act? In my opinion, this act is, it's almost criminal in its design. I mean, I that's a big statement, but I mean, looking at it, that's what it is. It seems to be criminal because of coercive control is criminal, isn't it? So, if it's it's the same thing. So criminality in the design of the Act. I mean, who designed this Act? This is the question. I don't know who designed the 2022 Protective Disclosures Act, but I think that there's a criminal intent here. And I mean, that's a big statement, but alleged. Just looking at the facts, it's incredible that an Act would be criminal in its design in terms of coercion, coercive control embedded in the Act, allegedly. So the courts, where imbalance is reinforced, judicial culture compounds the problem. There is deference towards state bodies. Yes, there is a perception, an extraordinary burden of proof placed on whistleblowers. Again, shielding institutions. There is adversarial litigation against people who often have no legal representation at all. I mean, you have that with a lot of lay litigants, same thing. A system already imbalanced becomes in a courtroom almost impossible to overcome. Cross-sector patterns, proof of a systemic problem. We have Garlic whistleblowers, healthcare scandals, TUSLA scandals, university governance failures,